Hi everyone, from me, Brent Graham of Good for the Game. Welcome to this Rugby World Cup 2023 outright preview powered by Playabets. Yes, there's going to be plenty to talk about going into this Rugby World Cup. Punters absolutely frothing at the mouth. And if you do enjoy your Rugby World Cup and you enjoy your betting, then subscribe to the Good for the Game channel, because I can tell you we've got plenty of previews to come. And while you're at it, hey, give this a video a like as well. Well, let me now introduce you to the guest today, and he's ex-Springbok rugby player, 37 test matches, scoring a try at more than, a try every game, and every half a game and a little bit more, I think it was. It's Stefan Terblanche. He's an ambassador for Playabets. Stefan, great to have you on the show.
Brent, good day, and thank you very much. Great to be here to all the listeners and guests, and I guess clients of Playabets. It's great to be here, and what a way and what a couple of weeks to look forward to with the World Cup coming up.
And some of us, of course, looking forward to it a little bit more than most, because I believe you are actually on your way to France to catch a couple of games.
Yeah, very fortunate that I'll be doing some corporate hospitality there, which of course is a great way to see the game, to meet new clients and meet new friends and rugby people. And on my way this weekend to France, to Marseille, to watch England against Argentina. Of course, a great and a big game in that pool. The winner more than likely will top that pool. And then the next day, of course, South Africa. That's on Sunday, the 10th of September. This coming Sunday, South Africa against Scotland in Marseille. And what a game that plans out to be.
Yeah, we certainly got some massive opening encounters, and no doubt we'll touch on them as we go through the betting. And Stefan, I thought what I'll do is just run through the odds at Playabets at the moment on the leading contenders, and you can share your views as to whether you think that team can go all the way or what their biggest challenges are and that sort of stuff. And I guess it comes as no surprise to find New Zealand at the top of the betting boards at 11-4. And I say that because in the past years, there was never a doubt that New Zealand were the favourite. This year, of course, certainly if we go back 12 months, New Zealand rugby looked to be in the doldrums. They made some very good coaching changes. They've come back strong. You obviously had that big warm-up loss to the Box. But we got New Zealand here at top of the betting boards. Do you think they deserve their spot up there at the moment?
Yeah, they're always good at World Cups. They always go into World Cups, as you so rightly said, more often than not as favourites. They're the only team in the world who's ever won back-to-back Rugby World Cup, 2011, of course, in New Zealand, and then 2015 at Twickenham against Australia in that game. So, it'll be a very brave man to bet against them. Yes, people will say a lot about their warm-up loss against the Springboks at Twickenham, 35-7. In fact, that's their biggest rugby defeat ever in the history of New Zealand rugby. So they'll be hurting. And I think the Springboks, yes, it was a great performance, but I don't think they did the world a favour by beating New Zealand by that much, because they will be going into this tournament. And of course, they play the opening game against the host and also one of the firm favourites, France, who's had an excellent run coming into this World Cup. So, yeah, I think New Zealand's there and thereabout, and it will be interesting to see how they bounce back. What rugby people and South Africans and specifically must not forget is the fact that South Africa or the Springboks played against the All Blacks for 40 minutes of that game with 14 men only. Of course, Scott Barrett got sent off for a second yellow. Later on, the red card was withdrawn. He was not sanctioned, but for 40 minutes they played with only 14 men. And in a test match, 15 on 15 is hard. When you lose one guy, it's really, really tough to compete.
Oh, well, let's go on to the second team, because, of course, you touched on them already. They play New Zealand in what is going to be a cracking opening game. We've got France here, the hosts, at 3-1. Just from a betting perspective, I can tell you these two sides have been trading favouritism over the last few months. It was sort of France, and then New Zealand suddenly, won the Rugby Championships. They went favourite. Then France came back. A couple of injuries have set France back a little bit in punters' minds. So they've drifted out slightly in the betting, but they're at 3-1. Give us your views on France, Stefan, and also on this opening game. I mean, how important is it, given that we really do expect both teams to make it through to the quarterfinals?
I think, for me personally, purely from a rugby point of view, France would probably be my favourites at this stage. I know the bookies and the people in the know and the algorithm and whatever you want to call it got the All Blacks slight favourites at the moment, but France. The one thing about France is that, there are two things about France. First, let's look at their form coming into this game. Outstanding, strong. They all of a sudden it's a different French team. We always knew they had flair. They could score tries. You might score 4 tries, but the French will score 6 and beat you 42-38. But these days, all of a sudden, and not say all of a sudden, they've really worked hard over the last 2-3 years. They've got a defensive system in place which is hard to penetrate, which is hard to get through, hard to get behind them. And this is driven by a monster pack of forwards. I mean, what they've done with their pack of forwards, yes, they've got the Duponts and the Ramoses in the back line who can score tries and kick goals from anywhere, but their pack of forwards is really one of the strongest and certainly one who can compete with the Springboks. Should we meet somewhere? It could be as early as in the quarterfinals. Should we, you just never know the draw, how it's going to work out, but South Africa will play France or the All Blacks in the quarterfinals. There's nothing we can change about that. So
that's a given.
That's a given. So we could see France in the quarterfinals, and right now, yes, they were very unfortunate to lose. Hintermark is their fly-off, outstanding player. Of course, his dad also played for France. Emile Hintermark on the wing and fullback, also a special player. But they lost him. They lost one of their front rowers, their starting front rowers. He'll be back only halfway through the tournament. But in saying that, they still have enough there to be, in my book, for now, they will be the favourites, if I have to call it right now. At home advantage as well. The French, they always do relatively well. They've reached the finals in 87. They've reached the finals in 99. They reached the finals again in 2011 in New Zealand, against New Zealand, the All Blacks. But they just never seem to get and to kick on. Somewhere in the tournament, they'll either cause an upset, or they'll upset course against them with a not so strong team beating the French. We've seen that time and time again. And every World Cup, they spring a surprise, whether it's in favour or whether it's not of the French team.
Well, thanks for bringing up that 2011 Rugby World Cup final, because I had a fortune riding on France. I backed them for 2 years going into that tournament. They performed absolutely rubbish all the way through. I mean, even the semi, they scraped by against Wales, who had 14 men. And then they turned in their best performance against New Zealand. And I'd have to say that Craig Joubert, for me, didn't cover himself in glory. I won't expect you to comment on that. But yeah, that's an old wound you've brought up there. But Stefan, just before we move on from this, these sides are meeting in this first game. What are you thinking now? I can tell you, I had a look at the odds just before we recorded the show. Bookies cannot separate these sides in the opening game. And over the last month or so, it's been 1 point either way. Who's going to win the opener?
Great question. I'll be in Marseille. I'll be watching with 1,000 other supporters watching on the big screen as we're gearing up for South Africa playing 2 days later. If I have to make a call right now, I would have to go for France. And the reason I say that is, again, it's a home team. And somehow in the World Cup, somehow in those games, they always seem to like playing against the All Blacks. They've caused some massive upsets. I know in 1999, All Blacks were firm favourites. Semi-finals at Twickenham, the All Blacks were leading comfortably. And then Dominici and Olivier Magnier turned the thing on his head and beat them. They lost in the final to Australia comfortably, but somewhere they can always cause an upset and cause a bit of an issue and a draw. So right now for me it's France, and the reason I say it is that the All Blacks will be hurting after their South African loss. Yes, it was only a warm-up game, but they're a proud rugby nation. The whole country, and it's not a very big country. People must understand there are probably more people living in Soweto, South Africa than there are living in the whole of New Zealand. So pound for pound, per capita, men for men, women for women, they're phenomenal rugby playing nation, and people must understand that they'll be hurting. It's a religion in their country. So I'm not sure how they're going to go into this game. They can either run away with it as they get their set piece sorted out against South Africa. They were absolutely annihilated in the scrums. They didn't compete on the lineouts. We were good driving lineouts. We saw Mark scoring a try. We saw Kwaha scoring a try. So we saw Sia scoring a try, all the forwards in those games. So I'm not sure how they're going to bounce back after that South African game. And it's hard to gauge whether South Africa was outstanding in that game, or the All Blacks were just slightly off, or whether the one-man numerical advantage South Africa had for 40 minutes in that game ripped that hole and ripped that 35-7 victory apart for South Africa. But right now I would go for France at home. They've worked, since they've done the draw, since they've got the official rights to host the World Cup in France. This is the one game they've been working to, and I think France, but by the narrowest of margins.
Well, we're leaning very much in the same direction on that one. I'm also seeing France winning a close one. And just a reminder to punters that on the game itself, you get all sorts of markets. You can bet on who's going to win the game. You can also bet on one side winning by, for example, 1 to 12 points, where you get a bigger price, because it is hard to see either of those teams really running away and thumping the other one. But now it comes to a team which I know is very close to your heart, Stefan, and that, of course, is the Springboks. Now, the Springboks went into that. We talk about only a warm-up, and fair enough, but the Springboks went into that warm-up game generally around 4.5 to 1, 5 to 1 available out their chances. But after that warm-up game, as someone watching, and it was almost like, yes, it was a warm-up, but we can't ignore what the Boks did there. And bookmakers were very quick to slash the prices, and I'm assuming that quite a bit of money came for the Springboks as well. We've now got them at 10-3, which is basically 3.33 to 1. What do you make of the Boks? Are we gonna become the second team to defend the title?
Well, I surely hope so. And all of a sudden, it is really coming together nicely. You know, a couple of months back, we were really, really worried about one person and one player in particular, which solidifies this team. And as a nation, he brings us all together. He can manage that situation. And to be fair, he always plays his best rugby at the World Cup, a man by the name of Siya Kolisi. He had a serious knee injury and made a miraculous recovery. Of course, 2 weeks ago, he played against Wales, one half, straight back into the action, and last week against the All Blacks. And he doesn't seem to be bothered by the injury at all, which is not only good from a playing point of view, but from a leadership point of view. We really need that man, Siya Kolisi, and it seemed like he pulled through, which will, of course, enhance our chances tenfold to retain the cup. And as I said, there's only one team in the history of world rugby who could do that, and that was the All Blacks in 11 and 15. So yes, we do have a good chance. We've of course got an incredibly tough pool. If you look at our pool, I just mentioned Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, Tonga, and Romania. Out of the top 5 teams in the world, 3 of them are in that pool, meaning that of the top 5 teams in the world, currently Ireland, South Africa, France, All Blacks, Scotland, out of those 5 top teams, 1 will not make it out their pool. And 3 of those teams will not even make it to the semis. I mean, that's the draw that was done 2.5, 3 years ago. So that's how tough the pool is for us. But I think South Africans like to play World Cup rugby. They like those tough games. Yes, it might not be pretty. It might not be flash. I remember in 2019, I was in Japan, and obviously the Springboks were winning, but the spectators and the followers and the supporters were pulling their hair out because we kicked the leather off the ball. I know it's not a leather ball anymore, but for a better set of a word, I mean, we kicked the ball, especially Fafdekak came into a lot of criticism. And in the final, we completely changed the game. We scored 3 tries and absolutely annihilated 32-15 against England in 2019 World Cup. So I think we enjoy playing World Cup rugby, I think, with our pack of forwards. And again, a lot of criticism for the Springboks with their 7-1 split. For those of you out there, you have 15 guys on the field, 15 players, and then you have 8 reserves, which you can use however which way you like. And I just have to reiterate that you can use them whichever way you like, because a lot of the overseas coaches and rugby supporters has got a big lot to say about, the 7-1 split, meaning that you have 7 forwards on the bench and only 1 back, which is a big risk you take as a Springbok team as well. You get 1 or 2 injuries early in the game to one of your backs, meaning now that one of your forwards, who's one of the bigger, faster guys, will now have to go and play in the back line to fill out that spot. So, I mean, we do take a risk. But South Africans like to play World Cup rugby. It might not be pretty, but they can play winning rugby. And I do believe that this team, under the leadership of Siya and the other senior players around it, has got a lot of Springbok caps, test caps around them, and they can certainly defend their title. We need to get out of our pool, which will be very tough. Of course, the number 1 team in the world, as I said, Ireland. They've been playing amazing rugby for the last 2-3 years. They beat New Zealand in New Zealand, the first team to do that since 1994. So that's no mean feat in itself. The question about the Irish is, can they match the Springboks pound for pound with regards to their pack of forwards? Can they defend? And if they can on the day, are they willing to go, and can they go for 6 games unbeaten in a Rugby World Cup? Of course, key players to their causes as a guy by the name of Johnny Sexton. He plays at number 10. He's 37, 38 years old now, which is quite old for a World Cup rugby player. He does get a lot of injuries, but when he's on song, when he's playing, and when he's on form, he's certainly solidify and bring that Irish team together. So it'll be a tough pool for South Africa to get out of.
And let's go on to Ireland now, because we saw South Africa, they're 10-3, Ireland at 9-2. Would you say that betting's about right? In other words, South Africa probably, of the 2 sides, even though Ireland are number 1 in the world, would you have South Africa favourites to win that group?
I didn't before the tournament. No, unfortunately, I didn't. I had Ireland to win that pool, but I did say that we'll get through the quarterfinals, whoever we play there, France or probably in my book, I would turn, Ireland and the All Blacks around. I wouldn't have them as favourites. I would have France as favourites, South Africa second, than Ireland and the All Blacks, just going into the tournament. But I think that's a pretty good bet for Ireland. Historically in World Cups, they haven't done well. They have they've really played some wonderful games, but when it really mattered, they just couldn't get it over the line. And this is an Irish team that's different. They've also been together, obviously very well coached by another Farrell, which is an Englishman, Owen Farrell's dad, of course. But I think just 6 weeks in a row, they need all their players to be on the field. I think it's just a bridge maybe just a little bit too far for them to cross. Trust me, this Irish team on any day, on any team they play, they can beat them. I'm just not sure if they can do that 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I was looking at the draw, Stefan, and I mean, there's no doubt Scotland, hell of a tough draw. They got Ireland and South Africa. South Africa got Ireland and Scotland, but Ireland almost had the toughest draw in the sense of the number of big games they have to put through in a row, because I think their last game is against Scotland. And they're going to have to go. They effectively potentially starting their knockout rugby a week earlier than everyone else, type of thing. So, it's going to be really tough. And I mean, Sexton as well. I mean, I know these days, and Sia Khaleesi is a great example. Guy comes back into the fold. He's come back from an injury. He hasn't had match practice, and you'd never say he's been gone. I mean, I think he was absolutely superb, particularly against All Blacks. Sexton, 37, 38, as you say, 8 years old. He hasn't played a match in ages, has he? I mean, Ireland are obviously expecting him to just come in and start orchestrating things as he does. But it must be a risk for Ireland that Sexton is not going to be the Sexton of old.
Yeah, I think he is one of those players. Let's give him credit where credit is due. He can come into the big games and play like he's never been out of it. The reason Sexton has not been playing for the last couple of weeks is because he was banned. He was sanctioned by World Rugby for. I just got to get my wording right here. It wasn't abusing. It was showing disrespect to the match official. And of course, in the Heineken Cup final against La Rochelle, which they end up losing, his Irish club Leinster, they lost in Dublin, and he had a lot to say to the referee, which was of course South African Jaco Paper.
We won't repeat on the show.
Exactly, which is another debate and another story, and I'm sure we can have a whole show about that in itself. But yes, he was banned, so he wasn't allowed to play. So he's coming back now. He served his suspension, and as I said, he is one of those players that just can come in and just control the 9 and the back line, control it from 10, bring all these big players into the game. So he is a special player. He's shown it time and time again. He's played over 100 test matches for Ireland. He's been an exceptional leader. But, it's important and it's crucial for Ireland that he stays injury-free throughout the tournament.
Right. Well, now we move on to groups C and D. And when we talk, you can see the difference in the betting here, Stefan. I mean, we've talked about the top 4 sides. Only 2 of those sides we've spoken about so far, like you correctly say, will go through to the semis. Now we've got, let's call it the best of the rest. And we've got Australia, 12-1. I must say, when I watched the first half against New Zealand the other day, the second game they played, the second Bledisloe Cup, I quickly raced and took some 12-1 because I thought, geez, this Australian side are really firing. But since then, I've started to think that I might have made a donation to the bookmakers' Christmas fund. What are your thoughts on the Aussies?
I don't like to call these things, but I think at 12-1, it should be at least double that for the Aussies to win at this stage. And it's not because they're not, they got a great coach in Eddie Jones. He's been to World Cups for Australia. He took them to the final in 2003. He was part of South Africa's coaching setup as a consultant in 2007 when we won the World Cup. And then, of course, in 2015, he upset the Springboks at the World Cup with Japan. And then, of course, in 2019, he took England to the final of the Rugby World Cup. So he's got an excellent track record when it comes to World Cups. This might be a bridge too far and maybe a bit more than he can chew this time with the Australians. They've been battling. They're not sure about their playmakers. They got a young team, and who knows? They might surprise people. But as you said, they are the best of the rest. I think they probably 8th, 9th in the world now, if that. I know that Fiji has just passed them, so you got Fiji at 7, probably Australia, England, Wales at 10 in that order. So I think at 12-1, you'll be a brave man, even at those odds, to put any money on them. The only thing is that if you look at the other side of the draw, as you said, we've got the top 5 teams on the one side: South Africa, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France, and of course the All Blacks. On that side of the draw, you've got other few players or other few teams that are not so good, and the bottom 5 of the top 10. So Australia will have a easier way into going into the semis and the quarters. That's for sure. I think in their pool, probably the favorites in their pool at the moment might be Fiji. I think they got Fiji, Wales, Australia. So I think currently Fiji sitting in the 7th position, playing great rugby. I think joining Super Rugby has been exceptional. It's been a great move for them, and they've certainly shown in their performances at Test level.
Well, Fiji, yeah, interesting to say that. I know a couple of months ago, a few of the guys on our website, in our forum, were starting to back Fiji to win the group at about 18-1. And those odds have come in dramatically. The bookmakers still haven't. I think a lot of punters feel the same as you. It's like, in actual fact, should Fiji actually be favourites for this group? But I think because they're Fiji, the bookmakers can't bring themselves to make them favourites. But you'd still get a decent price on them. But yeah, Wales and Fiji in the group, it's certainly, when you looked at it a year ago, you thought Australia cruised through, but certainly no longer the case. And I'm going to move on to the next group, the top team in the betting there, which is who's really struggled in recent months, and that is England. They're 14-1. They're in a group with Argentina. I remember looking at this and thinking, England also guaranteed to go through, but I'm not so sure anymore. They're 14-1 to win, and as much as you wouldn't back Australia at 12-1, I can tell you, Stefan, I'm not backing England at 14-1.
Yeah, you're so right. We spoke about Fiji, and they were the latest, guys who fell to the Fijian team at Twickenham at home like a week ago. They lost to also in a bit of disarray there. 2 of their players, of course, Owen Farrell, serving a ban there for a dangerous tackle, and then also Billy Vunipola, again, 2 of those players who will miss the first 2 pool games. And of course, the first pool game for England will be the toughest and the hardest, because they play Argentina this weekend, and the winner of that game will more than likely top this pool. So at the moment, I wouldn't go at 14-1, as I said, at least 20-1. But again, they have a better draw than the other side, but I just don't think they have enough to go all the way through. Their packer forward just not dominant enough, and at 9 and 10, they just don't have the control. If you look historically at World Cups, the teams who won it always had a good 10 in control from Lineak from 1987 when Grant Fox, and then 1991 Australia had Lineak, in 95 South Africa had Joel Stransky, 99 Stephen Larkham for the All Blacks, 2003 of course Johnny Wilkinson, and it carries on with Dan Carter later on. So I think they just don't have the packer forwards to dominate and be physically, for 80 minutes compete with the big teams like France, South Africa, even to a degree Ireland and the All Blacks. And I think actually that Argentina will win that pool.
Well, I must tell you, the betting has moved very much in that direction. Although you can get a bigger price on Argentina now, 24-1. They were probably 40-1 a month ago or so. They've got, in my view, a great coach in Chaka. I always rated him. He looks like a real hard man, but I always enjoyed him. And I can tell you now, the first game, England against Argentina, and by the way, Stefan, you're probably going to get seeing that you're at the ground, you're probably going to get a WhatsApp from me asking for a conditions report before the game as I look at all the markets on offer. But, I mean, bookmakers have England very slight favourites for that match. So Argentina must be big runners to win the group. And then given the draw, you'd have to say they're a fair call to possibly make the semis, maybe, which they've done once before, I think, and perhaps even kick on further.
Yeah, for sure. I think in 2007 they actually ended third. They might have ended third on another occasion, but they are, they are a good team. They got a very good coach in Alex Cheka. Of course, he was coach of the year in 2015. His Australian team made the World Cup final. He was competing against Steve Hansen, and was World Rugby Coach of the Year. Exceptional coach. He wears his heart on his sleeve. You can see how passionate he is about the game, and often as officials, they have to catch it in the ear from Cheka after a game, because he tells him exactly what he thought, what went wrong, and how he saw it pans out. But he is a good coach, and they've had some great results. They beat the All Blacks in New Zealand last year. They pushed South Africa hard. They beat the Aussies this year in Australia. Again, Australia not on great form, but it's still not easy for those South American teams and a team like Argentina to go and play in the Southern Hemisphere against, Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa and push them that hard. So they are, at 24-1, they are a good bet. Again, can they go all the way? Can they discipline? Sometimes there's one or two issues with regards to disciplines or yellow cards or red cards or, just penalty giveaway, which is crucial in the World Cup because your good kickers will kick those 3, 6, 9, and before you know it, you're 12-0 down 15 minutes into the game, and it's hard to catch up. So, but a decent bet. I just don't know if they can go all the way and have the mentality for 6 weeks just to grind it out and to win games. Yes, they play great rugby, good strong packer forwards, always scrum well, driving lineouts is good. But maybe at 24-1, I think that's fair. I'm not a genius when it comes to betting odds, but I think that's a fair bet for where they are at the moment.
Fair price on them. Just before we move on from Argentina, I just want to jump back to England quickly, and then I want to jump back to South Africa, and I'll ask you 2 fly half questions. For England, assuming all 3 of their fly halves are fully fit, who would you play at 10 if you were the English coach?
So you've got a choice between Ford and Farrell.
Ford, Farrell, and Marcus Smith.
And Mark Smith, yeah. Look, it depends on the game. Probably I would stay away from Smith. If it is playoffs time, then I'll probably go for a guy like Farrell. Just try and guts it out. Hope he keeps his arms and elbows tucked in and doesn't concede any penalties or yellow cards or red cards. But I think he's learned his lesson now. So probably yes, unless you take Ford at 10 and you move Farrell to 12. But they're probably going to go for Tuolangi, big ball carrier, especially in playoffs. Keep it close to your pack, try and milk the penalties, try and get over the gain line. So I would probably start with Farrell at 10 if I was a coach right now, and it was a playoff game. And this first game really is a playoff game for them. It's not about winning, scoring tries or trying to run the ball around. Even if the weather is good in Marseille this weekend, come Saturday. For them, it's just to get a result, to get those points on the board, and to have a good start to their tournament.
And then just quickly, the Bok flops. I thought the Bok he's playing some really great rugby, and was probably comforting to people to see that he nailed some kicks there. I mean, is Lebok? Are we at the stage now as a country where we should say stop worrying about Pollard coming back? Back Manie Lebok. He's got what it takes to do the job.
Great question. We've been debating that at length. I think Lebok is exactly where you want him to be with regards to his time played, but I think he's perhaps a little bit off the pace still, and that's why I was so sad that Pollard could not make it, and that is out injured. The reports are to seem like he's back up and running again, but of course we've selected our 33 for the World Cup. You can't change that unless there's an injury. And I would hate to be the coach who tell a player that you have to go down with an injury or fake an injury, and so that we can bring a Pollard or a Lucanio, whoever the player is. So, Lebok is there. He's a great player. I think he's one for the future. You just got to know that going into a World Cup quarterfinal, semi-final, historically for the Springboks, and in fact for all teams, very few teams run away with those games, is that you really need your kicker to fire. And as I said, you got to build that innings of 3, 6, 9, and put the other team on the scoreboard pressure, as they would like to refer to it, because you only get so many chances, and you've got to nail them all in a World Cup quarters.
Right, let's go through now a couple of the, let's call them underdogs. You don't have to spend too much time on them unless you've got a strong fancy for either of them to go deep. But Scotland, of course, they're 40-1. If they were in Group C or D, Scotland would probably be priced around 8-9-1, I would imagine, because I'd say they'd be ahead of Australia and England in the betting. But the fact that they're with Ireland and South Africa means you can get 40-1 about the Scots. Any value there?
Yeah, I think also at 40-1, you'll be a brave man to put any money on that. They are a good team. I think they probably got their best World Rugby rankings for many years now. They're at number 5. Gregor Townsend, of course, is their coach, excellent coach, likes to play the game deep. Finn Russell, he's finally decided to settle on Finn Russell at 10. He takes the ball deep, but he likes to play with it and move it across the face. I think with a rush defense, and South Africans' rush defense against them, the big packer forwards just wearing them down. Yes, and they'll be competitive. And trust me, on any given day, they can beat any given team. And as you so rightly said, I think for our pool, yes, South Africa will go past them. No disrespect to the Scots, we'll beat them. I don't think it'll be much in it, but I think we'll beat them. But when they play against Ireland, they've played against Ireland every year in the Six Nations. They don't hold any fear. They don't fear Ireland, maybe perhaps like they used to fear the Boks with the big pack of forwards. They know what's coming their way. And they will really fancy their chances against Ireland. Come that last game of Pool B, they will really fancy their chances against the Scots and against the Irish, beg your pardon. That's what makes them so dangerous. Yes, if they get through the pool, I think they've done exceptionally well, but I don't think they'll go any further than a quarter or a semi, unfortunately.
And that brings us on to Wales, also at 40-1. for different reasons. They're actually in the soft half of the draw, but they just haven't been playing very well. But historically, Wales, pretty strong World Cup side, that have been to quite a couple of semi-finals that I can recall. Any chance Wales can turn it around?
Not winning the tournament, and I don't think with the team they have at the moment. Warren Gatlin's got a young team there. A lot of your more established players, handed in their resignation and retired from international rugby not so long before the World Cup. We immediately think about the highest capped test player in the world, Alan Wynne-Jones. Maybe he was getting on a bit, but still added huge value to that team, especially with regards to experience. So I think, no, I don't think Wales. They got Australia in their pool, and then against Fiji. Historically, they've never liked playing against the South Pacific teams. They've lost on more than one occasion. They've lost to Samoa. They lost to Fiji, and there's a very good chance, and I don't know if Fiji is that good or Wales is just not that good, that they could lose the opening game against Fiji, and Fiji will really, really fancy their chances of getting that result and getting that W. So I think Wales will do really well to get out of their pool, which means that they'll automatically go into a quarterfinal. Whether they're number 1 or 2 in that pool, it will all be determined in the next couple of weeks. But if they get beyond the quarterfinals, they've done really well. But you're right, they get to semifinals. Somehow they found a way, and they've been in a few semifinals. And in 2019 in Tokyo, we played them in the semifinals, South Africa, and I think the score was 19-16. So they like playing ugly, dirty rugby. But in playoffs, who cares? As long as you get the result, it doesn't matter. If you win 3-0, that's a result. That's all you want on the day. So I think they'll battle to get through the quarters. But if they get into a semis, they could perhaps upset. But at 40-1, I wouldn't put my money on it.
I'm not going to tempt you to put money on that. Right. And just a couple of other things I just want to touch on, Stefan. I don't know if you would have had a chance to give this any thought, but top tournament try scorer, anybody who jumps out for you there? And I can quickly look. I've got the Playabets site open. I can look what sort of price they are.
Yeah. Look, I don't know about the price, but I think the fullback for Italy is back from India, Capioso, however you pronounce that. Reece Zammit for Wales. The All Blacks always score a lot of tries in the tournament. They'll play against weaker teams, and they quite comfortably put 100 points in them. They like scoring tries. They like to run with the ball, especially if their forwards are in the game. And against the weaker teams, their forwards are always right up there. They're a big team. So a guy like Will Jordan, Dupont for the French, he's a great finisher. He's that inside pass, great back of forwards, move the ball wide. That last inside pass to Dupont, of course, he's a wonderful player, probably one of the best, if not the best player in the world at the moment. That, of course, is the French French scrum half, number 9. Caden Moody's come into the tournament, playing at 13, playing at on the wing. Great find for South Africa with Lukanyo injured. It's great to have a backup for Jesse Creel in that position. So, between them, I think Dupont, Will Jordan for the All Blacks, Capioso for the Italians, and Caden Moody for South Africa. I think there's a pretty good chance that between them they'll score a lot of tries.
Yeah, well, you can go into Playabets and have a look at those odds. I didn't manage to grab them all. They'll all be there. I saw the Welshman Zammit, Reece Zammit, he's 18-1. So the nice thing about this particular market is you can get quite nice prices. I mean, even Will Jordan is the favorite here at 7-1, but you can get nice prices, and you don't have to throw a lot of money at it. You can have 100 Rand on, and you can have some great fun over the tournament.
It is so much fun, but also then, for instance, the All Blacks play whoever, like a weaker team, and they decided not to select Will Jordan, giving him a rest, and then they win by 102 points to 10 or something like that. You would like him to play in those games. Reece Zammit, perhaps. The Welsh won't have that luxury of resting their first team players because they got big games against Australia and against Fiji. And then who knows? Even in that pool, it might even come down to points difference if they lose to Fiji, but they beat Wales or Wales beat Australia. So there's a lot around that. So it is hard to call a top try scorer in a tournament. But at Reece Zammit at 18-1, and then Will Jordan, he's been playing exceptional rugby for the All Blacks, scoring a lot of tries. So at 7-1, he could be the go-to guy.
Excellent. Well, we'll put an article up on Goodforthegame with this video as well, and I'll make a note of the prices of the other guys that you mentioned there and put them on there. And then to a top tournament point scorer was Pollard, who topped the point scorer charts in 2019. I guess the risk here, you got Manie Lebok priced at about 5-1. But the risk with Mani is he going to be our man all the way through? Obviously, there's also the risk of an early exit for the team as well, which applies to a few of the top teams. What are your thoughts here? I can tell you just from a betting perspective, we've got Ramos at the top there at 2-1. You got Richie Mo'unga at 5-2, and then you got Lebok at 5-1.
Those are the guys that are. And I didn't go onto the site. I thought you asked me those questions before and said I might touch on them. So I had Ramos at the top. There he is. Then I got Richie Mo'unga, and then I've got Mani Lebok. As you say with Lebok, yes. Will they play him every single game? Will they play him against a Romania? Will they play him against a Tonga? We're not sure about that, and those will probably be higher scoring games. Even though I think even Tonga and our pool, we talk about Scotland, we talk about Ireland, but Tonga with the new World Rugby ruling that you don't play for your adopted country. You can go back to your country of birth after 3 years, and they've got a few All Blacks in that team. Pity that Israel Folau, the Australian fullback, had to pull out because of injury, but they got a few other players in that team who can make it really difficult for the Scotlands, Irelands, and South Africa in those games. So yeah, I think with Lebok, at the moment it looks like he will be our guy, as I said, because Pollard is not even in the squad. He's training with his club in England, Leicester. Let's hope he can pull through, but also let's hope we don't want any injuries to any players in the World Cup. But it will be, I think, between those three: Ramos, Richie Mo'unga, very good goal kicker. He also scores a fair amount of tries for the All Blacks, which of course is 5 points, and then Mani Lebok.
Excellent. Yeah, I must say, very much in agreement with your thoughts on that. Right, Stefan, let's end off. I'm going to ask you to pick a winner of the tournament. Who's going to walk away with the tournament in the final? And I'll ask you this: pick finalists and then pick a winner.
Oh, cool. I will pick finalists. I'll pick South Africa against the French. I think it's going to be tough for both teams to get there with the draw, and then just World Cup final, South Africa. If we can get to a final, I think we can win that. So I'm going to go purely on, a little bit of heart here with the Springboks. Of course, they're going into the tournaments, well prepped and seem to have a deep. They have a deep understanding of who they are and how they play the game. Very simple but effective, with some razzle dazzle, as Justin Marshall, New Zealand commentator, calls it on the outside with Colby. I mean, we've got Aaron, so we've got Kane and Moody now. We still got Makazole Mapimpi, who's sort of fighting for his place in the team. So great finishes there. So purely, if we get to a final, we play France in there, I think we'll have enough to beat them on a day. It won't be pretty, but who cares when you're in the World Cup final as long as you get the result.
Excellent. I know, if that happens, I could picture an absolutely nail-biting close final with maybe a last-minute penalty to decide it or something like that. But I like those picks, Stefan. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on the show and wishing you all the best for your French trip and your ventures with Playabets. Just to let people know, if they want to go onto Playabets, they can go onto the Goodforthegame site and click on one of the banners, or they can log on to playabets.co.za, and I'm sure you're going to have lots of fun with them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brent. And to Playabets, thanks for this opportunity. Good bunch of guys, and I hope the World Cup pans out well for you. And to everybody out there, to all the listeners and all the players who's not on the field but who's sitting behind their desk and backing their team, good luck. Let's hope the best team wins. And as Playabets would say, all bets are on. Enjoy your Rugby World Cup.
All bets are on, no doubt about it. Thanks very much to Stefan Terblanche. Thanks for watching. And do subscribe to the Good for the Game YouTube channel. We're going to have plenty of previews in the coming weeks.